story behind MTV's Unplugged.
Was a black metal musician really elected to office in Norway?
Hey everybody, this is Big Randy with the Smarts Project. I've provided security and transportation for some of the biggest names in the music industry.
I'm John. I've been a musician for over 20 years, playing everything from metal and punk to bluegrass and country.
We're bringing you a podcast about some of the weirdest myths and legends that the music industry has to offer. This is Tall Tales and Music Mythology. Hey everybody, this is Big Randy with the Smarts Project. Welcome to the podcast. And with me is a man who is not well read, but when he reads well, Mr. Jonathan Kvlt.
Hello, everybody.
You know what that's from?
No, actually, I have no freaking clue.
Kurt Cobain.
What song?
No, that's a quote from his.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I was like, I do not recognize that one.
He's actually, man, I was doing some research for the subject that I'm talking about today, and I got a new respect for him.
Oh yeah,
he really was like all the stuff that people said about him. Mm-hmm. Like I get it now.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I never did get it before.
I went through all that in high school. Like I read like his journals and stuff. Well, some of his journals,
right,
and whatnot, because that all came out around that same time. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school. There, they put out a greatest hits, obviously very posthumously, but. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a smart dude. It was really, it's a shame things went south the way it did.
Very true.
So, with no real Smarts Project update, but if all goes well and the creek don't rise, I'll be in Virginia Beach this weekend and setting the groundwork for about another month or so. I'll be in there permanently. So I'm just building the foundation right now. And
there we go.
Yeah, kind of stoked to get everything started. I can't wait. Yeah. Dude, I can't wait till we make public all the stuff that we're doing, man.
I know, right?
Man, it's going to make your butt pucker.
Hell yeah.
So, in the music news, a quote from Fox News, Charlie Daniels warns Taco Bell, the Illuminati is not a frivolous subject. This is taken directly from the Huffington Post.
Yeah.
Country music legend Charlie Daniels loses his damn mind over Taco Bell commercial.
And what's funny is actually through our Twitter account, I saw the tweet from Charlie Daniels.
Oh, is that?
So I actually saw, I was like, what the hell is this? I'm going through and reading all the tweets to and from. I'm like, oh my God, it's ridiculous.
So Country Music Hall of Famer Charlie Daniels seems to think that Taco Bell has crossed the line. The fast food company has been running ads featuring the Belluminati.
Yeah.
Its take on the Illuminati, except this shadowy society is more focused on value-priced snack items than world domination. Charlie Daniels seems to believe this is no laughing matter. In a quote that will no doubt live in the meme form for generations to come, Charlie Daniels is quoted as saying, "Hey, Taco Bell, the Illuminati is not a frivolous subject."
So hilarious.
Don't get no better than this.
Oh, man.
Charlie Daniels didn't offer any further comment, so it's not clear if he was joking or not. However, he has made occasional references to the Illuminati and Illuminati-like cabals in past social media posts saying these groups may be pushing a, quote, one world government administered by the elite and their minions, unquote.
Yep.
Its agenda, he claimed last year, was to increase and reduce the global population by abortion, euthanasia, starvation, and withholding medical treatment from whomever they deem too old or otherwise incapable to contribute to their version of a utopian global society.
Oh, yeah. There's so many conspiracies about that. And here lately I've been reading, there was a book that came out in 2016 that was about Twin Peaks. It was written by one of the creators of Twin Peaks, and it's the only book I've ever seen that talks about the Masons in like a conspiratorial sense, but actually says positive things about them.
Oh, right.
And in the lore of this book, it's actually the Masons trying to stop the Illuminati.
Oh, wow.
From doing all of that stuff. Thought that was interesting.
there's being a Mason, I guess I hear a lot more positive stuff than I do negative stuff, obviously. But
it just seems like in conspiracies that you hear in the world, just in general, it seems like the Masons are always painted in a bad light. So it was really cool to see, this piece of pop culture, more or less.
That was a positive tip.
Yeah, I was very interested by that.
In a 2014 Facebook post that had what may have been a hidden Taco Bell reference, Daniels said he wasn't sure how much of the Illuminati stuff was true. Quote, the whole enchilada is a little much for me to swallow, quote, unquote. Yeah. But having said that, I do have some very deep suspicions about people who operate behind the scenes and have undue and unmerited influence in the halls of power and international political scene.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, is Charlie Daniels part of the Belluminati? I tell you, man,
I would almost be willing to bet money that he was being serious with that Illuminati quote.
What makes me sad is I agree with you.
Yeah. And I grew up listening to Charlie Daniels.
Oh, sure.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, and not just Devil Went Down to Georgia. Uneasy Rider and Country Boy Will Survive.
I think, first of all, there's two people in country music. I know I'm going to hear a lot of shit over this, but there's two people in country music I really have a hard time wrapping my mind around. That's him and Hank Jr.
Oh, yeah. Hank Jr.'s a little crazy too there. Great music again too.
Well, yeah. Anybody that's a friend of them is in the music business. They probably eat his shit or he treats them well, like if they're a performer, because they're a peer.
Right.
If you work for them, he's a bastard.
Oh, I bet. I'm not trying to say anything bad about either of them, but yeah. Because
I was just getting ready to say I'm not talking shit about him. If you're a fan of his, I would imagine a vast majority of his fans haven't spent any time with him, either one of the guys. But
very true.
But I will say that my experience with both of them has been less than favorable.
Yeah.
I guess I should say.
I can remember in the it was either late 80s or early 90s. Hank Williams Jr. got in some trouble. I heard a lot of people complaining about him for showing up to a concert way too drunk, couldn't remember the words, ended up shutting down the concert early. I don't know if it happened in Indiana because I was too young to really grasp all the details. But again, I am not saying anything negative about either of those two guys because I respect the hell out of the music that they've made. But they definitely have a reputation of being a little hard to work with.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. So. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I have something for the music news, too. Yeah. I saw an article this morning on Blabbermouth where Dave Mustaine from Megadeth came out and explicitly said that his intention in forming Megadeth was to, quote, destroy Metallica.
I have heard that rumor.
Well, and
I heard that rumor years ago.
Exactly. And that's what I was about to say is that, I mean, that was... in news that surprises no one. Like, if you know anything about the history of those two bands and, Dave's unceremonious ousting from Metallica, you know that that's why he formed it. Even if he's never said it out loud. It was like, we didn't need that confirmation. We all figured that out a long time ago. But
we get it. Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting.
That's so funny because I mean I know next to nothing.
Right.
I know that there's people in the in convents that know more about heavy metal than me. But yeah, that was always the impression that I had.
Well, yeah, I mean you knew he was in Metallica. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. I think most people who are familiar with either of those bands generally know that story. I mean, not always, but
I've never had any run-ins with him, but I've always heard that he was kind of a dick cheese.
Yeah. Well, if you get kicked out of a band whose nickname was later Alcoholica because you were drinking and...
That's saying a bit.
Yeah. If you were drinking too much and you got kicked out of a band like that, you may have had a bit of a problem.
I know we did an episode before. It had something to do with drugs. I forgot what it was.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we've done a lot of those. I think people get maybe a wrong impression of, or maybe we don't give off a very good impression for that. But I mean, drugs and rock and roll are so intrinsic. Whatever.
But I remember when we did a story on that some dude was doing drugs so much that even the guys from Aerosmith was like, bro, chill. Whenever you got the Toxic Twins that are coming up to you, bro, hey man, you might want to take a chill pill.
Steven Tyler ate cocaine for breakfast.
Don't even touch his frosted mini wheats. You don't understand.
That ain't sugar.
Oh man. Shit. So
good time.
Anyway, MTV Unplugged is an American television series on MTV showcasing musical artists, usually playing acoustic instruments.
Mm-hmm.
The show was aired regularly between 1989 to 1999. The show aired less frequently from 2000 to 2009, usually billed as MTV Unplugged number 2.0. Since 2009, MTV Unplugged specials have aired occasionally, sometimes online only.
Huh, I didn't know if they were still doing them at all.
Yeah, same here. I didn't know about the 2000 to 2009. All I knew was like that 10-year span.
Yeah, I can't really remember any specific ones from the 2000s either. So.
Oh, you will in a minute.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
That was one thing I was going to say. I was going to say before we hit record is that all this stuff I'm going to tell you, you already know, but you just didn't know. That whenever you think about it coming from one source, you know, that kind of blows your mind a little bit.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of the Unplugged performances over the years.
Classic, man. Classic. Episodes and specials have tended to showcase one artist or group playing a combination of their hit songs and covers. A ridiculous amount of music history has been made as a direct result of MTV Unplugged.
Oh, very much so.
I really don't think it gets the recognition they deserve. Many of the artists who appeared on the show in the 1990s released their Unplugged session as an album.
Yes.
And some of these albums were commercial and critical hits.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Clapton's Unplugged in 1992 sold 26 million copies worldwide and remains the best-selling live album of all time.
Now that I didn't know. I knew that one was hugely popular just because of how often I hear Layla and Tears in Heaven came from that. Those versions.
Layla rocked my world whenever he rearranged that one.
There was a joke on The Onion a couple months ago about that. It was like, Eric Clapton wows audiences with an even sparser and slower version of Layla or something like that. It was really funny.
Other Unplugged albums that went platinum, underlined went platinum, include Mariah Carey's MTV Unplugged in 1992, Rod Stewart Unplugged and Seated in 1993, 10,000 Maniacs in 1994, Tony Bennett in 1994.
What?
Page and Plant's No Quarter in 1994.
Oh, yeah.
Nirvana's MTV Unplugged in New York in 1994. Alice in Chains Unplugged in 96. Shakira in 99. And the platinum, it also went platinum in the Latin market. Lauryn Hill's MTV Unplugged number 2.0 in 2001. That was so good.
I remember that one. So there is one from the 2000s that I remember there.
Well, and probably Alicia Keys, too.
I don't remember that one.
Oh, really? You know, that
maybe
she's an unusual one. That woman's absolutely gorgeous. Obviously, got pipes and talent.
Oh yeah, ridiculous.
Just never thought she was all that good looking. You know.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, I think she's beautiful.
Oh, she is beautiful. I guess just not my type.
Oh yeah, I'm not a huge fan of her music. I'm not knocking her music by any means, but
she is grossly talented.
Oh, insanely talented.
And how the hell anybody, her, Jerry Lee Lewis, anybody, how the hell they could play a keyboard and sing at the same time? Dude, I have a hard time doing simple math in my head while I'm eating cereal.
I mean, I've never tried to play piano and sing or play drums and sing, but I mean, I can play guitar or bass and sing, no problem.
Some of these albums produce successful singles as well, including Mariah Carey's #1 hit cover of I'll Be There.
Oh.
That was a monster, dude. They played that.
Okay, I do remember that one.
Oh, dude, there's so much of this is going to be just like that.
Well, because you named that Mariah Carey Unplugged. I was like, she didn't unplug? What? Yeah. That's weird.
Yeah.
But, okay,
which is kind of weird because she's just a singer.
Exactly. That was my thought process.
Yeah. There's other ones that, anyway.
Well, at least with Rod Stewart, he usually had a live band.
Right.
But like with Mariah Carey, it's so strange because, I mean, many of her songs, I would imagine she usually performs with just a backing track rather than a live band. Maybe she doesn't. I don't know. I don't care about Mariah Carey's music at all.
Right.
Again, not insulting her. Just
I've never had any run-ins with her.
Yeah. So
many people claim the Eagles' 1994 live album "Hell Freezes Over" was a product of Unplugged, though not part of the Unplugged series. It was produced by the Unplugged producers and followed a similar format.
Oh, now that I didn't know because I knew it was not. I don't think that was on MTV. I think that was on a major network or something, because I remember my parents watching it and recording it on VHS while it aired.
I think if I remember right, wasn't it you that I saw it one time? It was about this time last year I saw it, and I was like, dude, did you see the Eagles thing? Maybe I don't know, maybe it was Jason. I can't remember, but it was somebody that I was talking to. Like, dude, did you see when Hell Freezes Over? Yeah, it came out like 20 years ago. I'm like, no shit, really?
Yeah, dude, it was mid-90s.
So behind the time. The term unplugged has come to refer to music that would usually be played on electrified instruments such as electric guitar or synthesizer, but is rendered instead on instruments that can be played without electricity. For example, acoustic guitar, traditional piano, although a microphone is still used and usually the only electronic exception.
Right.
The underlying concept behind the Unplugged series has been attributed to the popularity among musicians of a variety of informal musical performances on stage, film, television, and record in earlier decades. The casual, quote, in the round sequence in Elvis Presley's 1968 comeback special, that was a monster, dude. Of course, I was a year old when it came out, but later on it was a monster.
Right.
And the Beatles' informal studio jams documented in the 1970 film Let It Be were both precursors of the Unplugged concept, though they were neither conceived nor promoted as such at the time they occurred.
Right.
The direct inspiration for the series came in the decade immediately preceding the creation of the MTV program. The catalyst was a series of highly publicized unplugged performances that occurred in the late 70s and early 80s. The first of these was in June 1979 by Pete Townsend at the Secret Policeman's Ball. Do you remember that?
No.
I actually do. A series of benefit shows in London for human rights organizations, Amnesty International, at which usually electric guitar wielding Townsend was persuaded by benefit producer Martin Lewis to perform his Pinball Wizard and Won't Get Fooled Again on acoustic guitar.
Really?
And it's really good, dude.
I'll check that out.
Well, there's also another one. The performances were widely seen and heard in the 1980 live album and the UK-only movie of the benefit and inspired other rock performers to emulate Townsend. 2 years later, in September of 81, Martin Lewis, that's such, every time I say Martin Lewis, I keep on thinking of Martin and Lewis.
Oh, right. Yeah.
the comedy team, produced a sequel benefit show, The Secret Policeman's Other Ball, that featured the similar performances by other rock performers, including Sting, Phil Collins, and Bob Geldof.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, that's almost... that's basically MTV Unplugged right there. Holy shit.
In 1982, the 1982 live album of these performances and the U.S. version of the Secret Policeman's Other Ball movie, which incorporated a quote-unquote flashback of Townsend's 1979 performances, both became very commercially successful and were widely seen and heard in the U.S.
Interesting.
Excuse me.
I've never heard of that one. That's,
It was... not a lot of people talk about it today, but I honestly have a feeling that if we had YouTube back in that day, that it would have been cliche by now.
Right.
Because I seen it, and of course we didn't have computers or YouTube or none of that stuff. But even I seen it somewhere.
Interesting.
Well, not the whole thing. I saw clips of it, I guess I should say.
Gotcha. Might have played on TV or something like that.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
The phenomenon. Well, and I'm sure watching MTV and VH1 as much as I did, I'm sure that they got little.
They might have played some too. That's a good point. Good point.
The phenomenon of rock stars recreating their hits in an acoustic manner was thus well established by the 1980s through the word unplugged. Although the word unplugged had not yet been applied to the concept.
Right.
In addition, in the late 80s, they saw a renewed interest for folk and acoustic music in general, accompanied by a wave of nostalgia for the music of the 1960s, which had a significant folk and acoustic movement. Many new acts, and I love the way that I read that. That was actually a quote that it had a nostalgia for the music.
Yeah.
Many new acts established during the period had a strong folk acoustic influence. Examples of that would be the Indigo Girls, REM, Sinead O'Connor, Suzanne Vega, which, wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Suzanne Vega messed me up. Lyle Lovett, Michael Penn, Enya, Bruce Hornsby and the Range. Which
gotcha.
I want to say, if I remember right, he's from Williamsburg, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
Gotcha.
I could be wrong on that. I'm sure I'll have somebody tell me I'm wrong later. At the same time, many established folk and folk-influenced artists from the 60s and 70s experienced renewed success, some reaching the greatest commercial success of their careers, such as Paul Simon, The Grateful Dead, Jethro Tull, Bonnie Raitt, Dire Straits with Mark Knopfler, Yes, and Bob Dylan.
Yep.
So they actually got more famous after the peak of their career.
Right.
The first rock artist to perform on Unplugged, do you remember?
No.
Jethro Tull.
Was it really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
On November 17, 1987, as an acoustic trio, Ian Anderson, Dave Pegg, and Martin Barr performed a portion of Serenade to a Cuckoo and Skating Away on Thin Ice of a New Day.
Huh.
XTC performed acoustically in May 89, and John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora performed Living on a Prayer and Wanted Dead or Alive during the 1989 MTV Music Awards.
Gotcha.
That was a monster, dude.
Now, the Jethro Tull one, was that before or after they won a Grammy? That was probably before, wasn't it?
I would imagine that one was before. Yeah, I wish I would have thought of that.
Because I think it was 88, I think is when they won their Grammy for Best Metal Album.
Okay, this was in November of 87.
Either 88 or 89. I don't remember. I should know this, but whatever.
I didn't even think about that. I should have. Paul McCartney's 1991 appearance was later released on the Unplugged, the official bootleg album. I was like that, the official bootleg.
Right.
The show's producer, Alex Kvlt, went on to say that had McCartney not released it, the concept would have never gained the cult status that it later enjoyed. Joe Walsh appeared on the show in 1990 with Dr. John.
Really?
And that was a last minute thing. I'm going to get into that.
Oh, cool. I want to hear that one, yeah.
According to the book, I Want My MTV, The Uncensored Story of the Music Video Revolution, Joe Walsh wanted to perform the Eagles classic Desperado, but Joel Gallen received a 3-page fax from Don Henley denying the use of the song.
What?
MTV invited Don Henley to perform on the show, but Henley wanted to have the show featuring only himself. At that point, MTV was sharing the time between two different artists.
Okay.
Henley was the first artist to get an entire half-hour show on his own as the only artist.
Really?
Yeah, where quickly became the status quo for the Unplugged. In 94, when the Eagles reunited, they appeared on an MTV Unplugged special. April 10th, 91, Unplugged aired its first ever acoustic rap show. We talked about this one.
Okay, yeah.
I thought that he was the very first performer on MTV, but he was the very first rap performer on MTV.
Okay, gotcha.
The special kicked off with individual performances by LL Cool J along with MC Lyte, De La Soul, and A Tribe Called Quest, and a 5-piece backup band named Pop's Cool Love, headed up by Questlove.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah. Nice.
LL Cool J was scared shitless, but once he got the groove on, he was unstoppable. Quote, "It's like you drink milk for 10 years. You have to drink fruit punch," unquote. Quest Q-Tip said about performing with the band, it's not that fruit is bad, it's just you have to get used to it.
Wait, who said this?
Q-Tip.
Oh, Q-Tip did. Okay, gotcha.
But LL seemed able to adapt. Quote, "We rehearsed the night before, and LL Cool J had never worked with a live band," unquote, Kvlt said. Before long, he was calling the shots like he'd been doing it his whole life.
Nice.
Now, I'll say this. I know this because I asked him about it, and you'd be hard-pressed to find it, what he told me anywhere in an interview, that he was scared shitless.
Really?
Yeah, because he ain't never worked with no live band before.
Makes
you got to
sense.
figure that, these kids, he's kind of the, if you took all the original rappers, like, the guys that I was listening to in 84 and 85, Kool Moe Dee and, God, Houdini, Dougie Fresh, Slick Rick, all them cats. He was kind of at the latter end of that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because it was kind of very late 80s, very early 90s.
Yeah, so he's really considered one of the godfathers of rap. Very respected. But we drove him one time, and of course I remember, far back as I can remember, Unplugged, I remember his performance on that, and I asked him about it. He told me he was scared shitless.
That's funny.
And I've never heard any interview of him saying that.
No kidding.
Yeah. But, I also know that, he's confident enough that once he, if you can get past him licking his lips all the time, he would tell you, drives me ape shit. I'd just be like saying, stop, just stop. Take some chapstick, just stop. But, but once he got his groove on, a freight train couldn't stop him.
Right.
But, however, in one interview, he said it felt totally natural and organic. Nothing was forced. Even though I had the white deodorant caked up under my arms, that was historic too. People have teased me about the deodorant for years, but I love it. It was raw. It was nasty. At least you knew I wasn't stinking. And that's like a big joke. That's one of those things that, ew, we could see his hairy armpits with the caked on white, deodorant on it.
Oh, gotcha.
Because he had his tank top,
Right.
Of course, if I looked like that, I'd be running around with no shirt too. Shoot. But the highlight of the show was LL Cool J's energetic renditions of "Jinglin' Baby" and "Mama Said Knock You Out."
Nice.
In 1992, Mariah Carey performed a cover version of the Jackson 5's hit "I'll Be There" along with backup singer Trey Lawrence. And they there for a while. I was gonna look this up. The background singer Trey Lawrence, they were crazy popular for like a year or two. Could not book this brother, and then just disappeared.
Really?
So I don't know if fame caught up with him, or if he just decided to lay low, or maybe he's doing like the producer thing, or I don't know.
Interesting.
I never did look it up, and I kept on saying I was gonna.
I did the same thing, man.
Oh, the joys of ADD. The live version was released as a single and went to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, as well as in Canada, New Zealand, Netherlands, and became a hit elsewhere. Due to high demand, the performance was released as an EP, MTV Unplugged, which eventually sold over 10 million copies worldwide. The performance was released in a video form as well, achieving success particularly in America, Europe, Japan, and Australia. And in 1992, Eric Clapton recorded an unplugged performance at Bray Studios in London. We were just talking about this before we record. He rearranged many of his famous songs for the acoustic context, and the resulting Unplugged album went on to become the best-selling Unplugged album in the U.S. and worldwide, with sales of 10 million in the U.S. and 26 million worldwide.
Wow.
That's not bad.
No.
Eric Clapton earned 6 Grammy Awards for the album, including Record of the Year, Album of the Year, Song of the Year, Best Male Pop Vocal Performance, Best Rock Male Vocal Performance, and Best Rock Song.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy
he was
shit.
crazy that year, man.
Well, I know he had a big comeback around that time.
Yeah.
So, I didn't realize he wanted
he didn't think it was good enough to release on an album. What kind of bar do you set for yourself that high? He was like, nah, it wasn't my best.
Right.
26 million sales.
Holy shit. That's
While
crazy.
MTV has filmed 101 unplugged performances, less than 30 of them have been released as albums.
Interesting.
Pearl Jam's March 1992 set wasn't released until 2009 as a DVD for the reissue of their album 10.
Oh, wow. And now, see, I remember seeing videos from that in the
good performance
in the mid-90s, I'd say. I mean, it was just being played on MTV.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's interesting. I didn't realize it didn't get released until then.
There's so many of these I'm going to read off that you're going, oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh, yeah. April 27, 1992, Seattle-based heavy metal band Queensryche filmed their unplugged performance playing songs of Silent Lucidity, The Lady Wore Black, I Will Remember, The Killing Words, and a very well-received cover of Scarborough Fair. Which is another thing I was going to look up because I was like, really? Those guys did
that I've never
Scarborough
heard.
Fair?
I've seen the performance of Silent Lucidity.
Yeah.
I've seen that one.
I want to say that's probably the only song I've ever heard from them.
Yeah, I think it might be.
I'm really interested in that Scarborough Fair now, though.
Yeah, that's curious. Really
Nirvana's performance on Unplugged was one of the last televised performances by Kurt Cobain, recorded on November 18th, 1993, about 5 months before Cobain's death. Nirvana's set list consisted of some of the lesser-known originals and the cover of the songs by the Meat Puppets, Leadbelly, David Bowie, and the Vaseline.
Yep, they did a bunch of really great covers, like Lake of Fire was a great cover, and I think that was a Meat Puppet song, if I remember correctly. And I know when they got ready to play About a Girl, which is one of my favorite Nirvana songs, and that was off of Bleach, off of their first album, before... and this goes along, I've talked about how Kurt Cobain hated the fame that he achieved through Nirvana. He said, before they played it, he goes, "This one's from our first album. You haven't heard it." Or something along those lines.
It's like most people don't. It was from our first album. Most people's never heard of it.
Yeah, exactly.
That was pretty,
so funny.
The only real hits played during the performance were Come As You Are, Polly, and probably the most popular of all the episodes, All Apologies.
Yep, exactly. That was a big one.
This contracts with their unplugged performances where artists largely perform their hit singles and other original material. Which I have to say, they really went against the grain on that, but I mean, it's one of their biggest episodes ever.
Well, that, and I mean, that was very much Nirvana's MO in general, was to, defy what was expected of them, and to kind of spit in people's faces like that. Like I know the year that Chris Novoselic threw up his bass in the air and it hit him smack in the face. I think it was at the MTV Music Awards or whatever. They specifically told them to play Smells Like Teen Spirit, but he wanted to play Rape Me, which was the single off of their then upcoming album, In Utero. And so the performance starts, and he starts strumming the first chords of Rape Me before then they started.
Oh, that's funny. That's typical. That's
or maybe they played Lithium at that point. I don't remember.
That's so typical. I've heard stories kind of like that.
Yeah.
And other stories. Nirvana's performance was released on a CD a year later as MTV Unplugged in New York, which sold over 5 million copies and would later win Best Alternative Music Performance at the 38th Grammy Awards in 1996.
They covered a Bowie song on that one too. They did The Man Who Sold the World.
Yeah, that was David Bowie, Lead Belly, and Meat Puppet.
Oh, you did say Bowie. I'm sorry, man. I missed. My bad.
Right. All white people sound the same. It's all right. It was released on DVD in 2007.
Oh, gotcha.
On October 14th, 1994, the long-awaited reunion between Jimmy Page and Robert Plant occurred in a 90-minute unleaded MTV project recorded in Morocco, Wales, and London.
Oh, interesting.
Which rated highly on network television. It wasn't a reunion of Led Zeppelin. However, the former bassist and keyboardist John Paul Jones was not present.
Yeah, and Bonham obviously was dead by that point.
That's tough to get him back on that case. In fact, Jones was not even told about the reunion by his bandmates.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, I Feel Butthurt on the Horizon.
Oh, man.
Which is a great song name.
Well, now they've done some reunions since then with John Paul Jones included.
Right.
So that's interesting that they didn't include
I don't know the story behind that.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. In addition to acoustic numbers, the album features the reworking of Led Zeppelin classics along with the Middle Eastern and Moroccan influenced songs. The resulting album, No Quarter, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant Unleaded, was certified platinum in the U.S. and elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. I remember when that came out, and No Quarter is one of my favorite Zeppelin songs. I do love
classic.
That song. Tool did a really good cover of that too.
It.
Really good cover of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that kind of shocked me a little bit.
I think it was No Quarter, or maybe it was. Yeah, I think it was. Maybe it was. Yeah, it was No Quarter. It was No Quarter.
I got a little thing about. I don't know. Maybe I didn't put it on here. I can't remember. But anyway, on this thing. Well, screw it. If I don't say it, then I'll say it at the end of this. On August 9th, 1995, Kiss performed on an episode that would lead to the reunion of the original members.
Huh.
Now, those brothers have been on tour like the Grateful Dead.
For 40 years.
Yeah, something
literally.
like that. So since 95, so what, 22 years? Because they're on tour now.
Mm-hmm.
They've been on tour. Dude, my daughter was born in 95. Holy hell. She's old enough to drink now. Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons contacted former members Peter Criss and Ace Frehley and invited them to participate in the show. Fan reaction was so positive that the following year, the original Kiss lineup officially reunited together for the first time since 1979.
And that was when Psycho Circus came out too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Jay-Z recorded a performance of Unplugged on November 18th, 2001, with The Roots serving as the background band.
Oh, I did not know that. That's awesome.
I'd like to look that one up.
Right?
I'd never heard that Jay-Z was on Unplugged.
No, me neither.
The subsequent album sold over 600,000 copies and made it to number 20 on the Billboard 200 chart.
And I love The Roots too. The Roots are
God, man. Questlove is just...
Dude.
I cannot say it. He's another one I'd like to meet.
Right? He seems just cool as hell.
And not only that, he is so knowledgeable. You know,
yes, that dude is
you
smart
meeting
as hell.
him, you would know how I feel around you, okay? Because I feel like I have some major learning disability whenever I'm around you. This guy has forgotten more stuff than I'll ever know.
Yeah, that dude's awesome. He definitely seems like a really cool guy to meet.
And this one is especially for you, brother. Queens of the Stone Age participated in their first Unplugged special in Berlin on June 2005 and performed a number of tracks from their album Lullabies to Paralyze.
Gotcha, yeah, that would have just came out at that point. So.
The concept of an MTV show titled Unplugged, drawing on this phenomenon, has been attributed to the producers Robert Small and Jim Burns, together with songwriter Jules Shear, who hosted the first 13 episodes and actually sang and played with some of the acts.
Oh, gotcha. I know that name. I've heard that name before.
I do too, but I think he's like he's probably like the Elvis Presley of session artists.
Right.
But after the first 13 episodes, the role of host was eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a couple of things that I found interesting about it that didn't fit into the story.
Yeah.
HBO passed on Unplugged when Scheer proposed the concept
Really?
to the pay channel. Burns of Small pitched the series to PBS after MTV initially said no.
Oh, wow.
PBS simply echoed MTV and HBO.
Huh.
It was only when Burns and Small ally Judy McGrath got a promotion at MTV that a pilot got the green light.
Huh. Well, and with PBS at least, I wonder if part of the reason they turned that down is because of their partnership with Austin City Limits.
Oh,
Although I don't know if that was active at that time or not. Maybe it
that's a good
wasn't.
question.
But Austin City Limits has been around since at least the 80s. I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan.
I was thinking late 70s.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Right, I'm saying I know at
area.
least the 80s, maybe before that too.
Yeah.
So
I wish I knew somebody in any of those circles.
Oh, I used to love watching Austin City Limits.
Dude, best show.
So many great performances on there.
There really was, but the one that really sticks out, if you ever have a chance, Lost Lonely Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, man. That was
I've
the
seen
best
some
performance
of that.
I've ever seen. It was the first one I've ever seen of them, and it was the best.
Really?
Yeah, I've never heard of them before then.
Oh, see, I knew of them from Guitar World magazine. Like, they covered
right.
Henry Garza like crazy when Los Lonely Boys first came out.
And then I found out that, I can't remember his name, but the guitar player, phenomenal guitarist.
Henry Garza.
Is it?
For Los Lonely Boys?
Yeah, that's Carlos Santana's nephew.
Yes.
And that was one thing that we talked about whenever I drove him.
Nice.
How's your nephew doing? Bob Small said he had just 4 hours to set up for the Unplugged pilot with another 4 hours to film it, and all on a budget of $18,000.
Wow.
Quote, I couldn't get the money to hire a director, Small said. They said, you direct it. No pressure.
Right.
But I mean, really, if you think about it, that kind of reflects, because there's really little to no production.
No, exactly.
Now they got better camera work and all that stuff now, but
right.
I think that was part of evolution and not necessarily conception,
Right.
The fifth episode was billed as Joe Walsh and Friends, and Joe showed up with only one friend, Ricky, his bass player. Coletti remembered.
That's classic Joe Walsh right there. Yeah. I would be disappointed if he actually had his shit together for anything like that.
We thought it meant his famous friends, but apparently that got lost in translation. Walsh had been a member of the Eagles who had an infamous falling out, but Walsh claims of buddies gave MTV employees false hope. Producer Bruce Letty found Dr. John recording at a neighboring studio and convinced him to come and be Walsh's quote-unquote friend.
No kidding. That's how that came about. That's a very odd pairing. Now, granted, I'm by no means like some sort of expert about either Joe Walsh or Dr. John. I enjoy both of them, but are they friends at all? Were they friends at all before that?
I don't know. I really don't know.
It really makes me wonder if it wasn't just a very last minute, hey, I didn't know I was...
that's exactly what it was. That's what I just said.
Right, but I don't even know if they knew each other. What I mean.
Right. I don't know because I don't know either one of them.
They had to have known at least cursorily. I'm sure they met
through
in
the
passing.
industry. Yeah.
Yeah, but damn, that's hilarious.
Neil Young's Unplugged was supposed to have been taped at the Ed Sullivan Theater in New York on December 12th, 1992. Instead, on that night, at that venue, the audience saw something you would probably never forget. Neil Young walking out the door after numerous mistakes.
Whoa.
The stunned crew members managed to get him back in on the stage and try it again that night. Young opted to junk the performance entirely, and he tried again 2 months later, this time with a band and with much more success.
No kidding.
That's heavy there.
That's really strange. I mean, he's such a, I don't know if perfectionist is the right word, but I mean, that dude, workhorse.
Absolutely.
Such a beast.
But I think that's probably why he walked out.
Very true. I'm just surprised to hear him make
doing
mistakes.
That.
You know what I mean? Like it's
because he's OG, man. I mean,
oh, dude, yeah.
I can't imagine him never have playing in a rougher venue.
Right. Neil Young's the man. That's awesome.
The Nirvana drummer remembered that it was a minor miracle that the band's Unplugged performance went so well. That show was supposed to be a disaster, Grohl said. We hadn't rehearsed. We weren't used to playing acoustic. We did few rehearsals, and they were all terrible.
Yeah.
Everyone thought it was terrible. Even the people from MTV thought it was horrible. Then we sat down and the camera started rolling and something just clicked. It became one of the band's most memorable performances. Mm-hmm. As Coletti told it, Kurt Cobain was thinking of replacing Grohl behind the kit, or maybe not using a drummer at all.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that part.
Yeah, I didn't know any of this stuff.
I knew they made a lot of mistakes because he really butchers the lyrics to The Man Who Sold the World.
Oh, no shit.
And even the timing is different. It's hard to describe without listening
Like
to
the
both
cadence?
songs. There's a little bit of an odd, I don't even call it a time shift. Like the verse starts at an odd interval in the David Bowie original,
Right.
and they just went ahead and made it just like kind of a normal entrance, I guess. For
Right,
the verse.
I see what you're saying.
So yeah.
What I didn't know was up until the day of the Unplugged performance, there was talk of Dave Grohl not playing at all in the show.
Man.
The producer revealed in 2014. Kurt wasn't happy with the way rehearsals were going. He didn't even like the way Dave sounded playing drums with sticks.
Oh yeah.
But Grohl turned up the day of filming, and Kvlt gifted him some brushes and sizzle sticks.
Yep.
To give his drumming a softer sound.
Yeah.
I was afraid Dave would just roll his eyes and like, oh great, the asshole from MTV is trying to be my friend.
That definitely sounds like something Dave Grohl would have done.
Yeah.
And it makes sense what he's saying there, because that dude was known for beating the living shit out of drums.
Oh, yeah.
Supposedly, he had to change drum heads every song when they were recording Nevermind.
Stop it.
Because he would beat the hell out of them so badly.
I'll be damned.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. The producer remembered thinking about what I said about him being an asshole when he was friend. But instead, he opened the package and said, "Cool, I've never had brushes before. I've never even tried using them." The album Unplugged in New York won the Grammy for the Best Alternative Music Album in 1996. It was the band's lone Grammy win.
Interesting.
Didn't know that.
Well, they really only had 2 albums that gained any traction in their in their short existence. Bleach didn't really get much commercial success at all, so I guess it doesn't totally surprise me, but it's still strange. You'd think they would have been nominated for Best Alternative Performance.
But you know what? That's all in
rock.
That's all in hindsight. They're a lot bigger now than what they were whenever they were active.
True, although they did pretty much single-handedly usher in the grunge era of the early 90s.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
But there again, that's in hindsight.
True.
At the time, I don't know if anybody was saying. There's people that knew about grunge as it was happening.
Right.
I lived in Seattle and I never heard of it.
No kidding.
It's not to say I never.
Ground zero for it.
Oh yeah. Well, whenever Kurt Cobain, whenever he died, we were down at Key Arena.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was me and my buddy Rod and a few other people that we worked together. That we went down to Key Arena, which is it's not downtown Seattle, but it's pretty close. But anyway, that's kind of where a ad hoc group of people kind of went, and it was a long time ago. I'm old and I got a shitty memory, but if I remember right, that Courtney had called in and somehow they patched in her phone call and they played it over the speakers to everybody, and hey, I appreciate everybody coming out and thank you for your support, and this is a really hard time for us, and blah blah blah. And dude, there was shit, I was old then, so, when was that?
94, 95.
But anyway, yeah, there was kids that was crying all over.
I bet.
It was a big deal. I get it,
I remember when it happened.
Yeah.
I was only in 4th or 5th grade when it happened, but.
Shut up. REM was the only band that performed twice on MTV Unplugged.
Oh, really?
Last one I got is Led Zeppelin bandmates reunited in 1994 for the Unplugged special No Quarter, Robert Plant and Jimmy Page Unleaded, which at the time was the highest rated TV series episode of the series ever.
Okay.
MTV suggested they film it in Queens, New York. Plant suggested Morocco and Wales because it was where he wrote Kashmir and Down by the Seaside, respectively.
Makes sense, yeah.
Network executives explicitly requested Stairway, but they were shot down. Quote, "I think we're in a disposable world, and Stairway to Heaven is one of those things that hasn't been thrown away quite yet," Plant said in 1994. "I think radio stations should be asked not to play it for 10 years, just to leave it alone for a bit so we can tell whether it's any good or not."
Well, and something, I know that Stairway to Heaven got played an obscene amount of times back in the day. Okay,
Sure.
I know that my parents' senior prom was Stairway to Heaven themed. Okay,
Oh, wow.
I know that, but I honestly, I think I could probably count on one hand the number of times I have actually heard Stairway to Heaven on the radio.
Oh,
Actually.
no kidding.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't listen to the radio very often, but when I do, due to my hatred of most things in modern music, I usually listen to classic rock radio stations. Is what I usually end up listening to.
Stick with what you know.
Right. Well, yeah,
like.
Exactly, and it's been filtered. Most of the crap's been filtered out of that, at least. But I rarely hear other Zeppelin songs quite a bit. You know, like Rock and Roll or even Communication Breakdown and stuff like that. But I very rarely have heard Stairway on the radio.
I'll be darned. So, yeah, I've heard it.
I think that's probably why. It's because it got so played out in the
it's cliche now.
Yeah, in the previous several decades before that.
I'm wondering. We've talked about like the signs on stage walls and bars. Like I know you have a great version of Wagon Wheel, but
right.
I'm wondering if like during the 70s and 80s that they had that sign.
Well, I'm sure.
I know you have a great version of Stairway to Heaven, but we don't want to hear.
Well, it was big enough to get the mention in Wayne's World.
Oh, absolutely.
When he was playing that Strat, it was like no stairway is the sign there.
That was classic.
I've actually seen that sign in
store.
In music stores.
Is that right? That's so funny.
Maybe not that exact same one, but they'll say something like that.
Sure.
There's always videos on MTV, on YouTube and stuff like that of like 10 songs that Guitar Center employees hate to hear you play and stuff like that.
That's good.
It's funny, like Crazy Train and Inner Sandman. It's like everyone knows how to play that. Shut up, stop it, don't do that.
I gotta tell you, man, there's some, you got people like me that in my head, I'm Yngwie Malmsteen, but, in my fingers, I'm, really chubby Randy that, can't even play a radio. But, there's some guys that are in between me and you that they might know like a handful of chords or maybe, 3 or 4 leads or something like that. And they know the leads pretty good. They might not know them like you, but they know them pretty good. You know, that, there's just a feeling that they get whenever they, because I remember whenever I first learned the bar chord.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
Very first rock song I was ever taught how to play by my buddy Lynn Adams.
Yeah.
Whenever I was in high school was, the very first one, I guess, was Johnny Be Good. But after that was, with the bar chord was Rocky Like a Hurricane.
Oh, gotcha.
Dude, gotcha. I was already trying to write down my Grammy Award acceptance, speech, and because I thought I was just going to set the world on fire with that. And I know a bar chord. Y'all bastards better get out of my damn way.
Was it a bar chord or was it a power chord?
Well, I guess that shows how much I don't know. I don't know.
I got you. I'm guessing it was probably a power chord, but I mean,
you're probably right.
Either way, power chord is just 3 notes of a bar chord, anyway. So.
Boy, I wish I knew enough to, delineate between the two.
Yeah, I could explain it, but I won't bore you and everybody else.
It's not nap time yet.
No.
So that's my story that I'm sticking to. We'll be right back. Big John gonna lay it down.
All right.
Oh, hello there. My name is Jason, and I'm the host of Evansville Podcast, proud member of the Evansville Podcast Network. On the Evansville Podcast, we talk with people in and around Evansville that own businesses, put on events, or doing interesting things in the tri-state. So check us out at evansvillepodcast.com or find us on your favorite podcast app and learn something you didn't know about life in Evansville. Good job, everybody.
All right, and we're back. So, I came across this story. It was well over a year ago. I honestly think it might have been kind of shortly after we started the podcast. Mm-hmm. I didn't initially think to write it down, but luckily people on Reddit are such suckers for fake internet points that stories like this get reposted constantly.
Right.
I guess there's a difference between people who come across the story for the first time and are just kind of excited to post it and straight up reposting karma whores. Right. But, that line often gets very blurred. That's for sure. So anyways, the last time I saw this article, which was probably around 4 or 5 months ago or so, it was on a website called factmag.com with the headline, Black Metal Legend Elected to Norwegian Town Council Against His Will. So,
whoa. Okay, you've got my interest.
So I'll go ahead and confirm right now that this legend is mostly true. And I mean, you can't really call this a legend just because, I mean, A, very few people have heard of it, and B, it's very recent.
Right.
So this kind of falls under the interesting stories category and less myth and legends category. But instead of my usual fact checking leading into confirming or debunking said myth, I'm just going to give a little more history about his band, this genre, and what exactly the truthiness of this story is, so to speak. So I know I've talked about black metal intermittently throughout previous episodes, and I know there's a lot of topics like this or other similar ones that I bring up quite a bit. And my apologies if it gets a little too repetitive. But for those who have only just started listening recently or may have missed some here or there, I'll go into a little bit more detail about it. And again, forgive me if you've heard any of this before, but
most people are normal and they don't know all the shit that you know.
Well, and I maybe it's just because I mention it often. I don't really listen to a lot of black metal. I find it interesting in how bizarre the whole culture is and how crazy some of these artists are. So, again, maybe people think that I, dress up in corpse paint and go out and burn churches at night. And that's not the case. But,
it's funny because you fix a car one time, nobody calls you a mechanic.
Yeah.
You fix a sink one time, nobody calls you a plumber.
Yeah.
But you dress up in black and you go to burn down a church one time and you're labeled for life,
Right. So, black metal is one of the most extreme of all the myriad metal subgenres. And there are several subgenres that musically could be seen as more extreme, notably like the more intense death metal acts like Cryptopsy or Necrophagist and other similarly strangely named bands such as that. But the intentionally abrasive nature of black metal is what really separates it from other forms of metal in that regard. The genre has some very common sonic earmarks, so to speak. Vocals that often alternate between high-pitched screeching, I mean like pterodactyl screeching, and occasionally low growling, although rarely as low as like gutturals or death metal grunts, like something you'd hear in Cannibal Corpse and that type of thing.
Do it.
Like Cookie Monster vocals.
Cookie Monster. You're killing me.
Very fast drumming, including a lot of blast beats. Blast beats are a term that I'm sure many people are not familiar with either, and basically it's playing everything on the drum kit as fast as you possibly can at once.
Wow.
I think the technical definition of it is like 16th notes on the snare, so it's constantly like super fast.
Christmas morning play.
Exactly,
right.
Stuff you want to listen to when you're relaxing.
I was thinking of Christmas morning when they first get their drum kit.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, exactly. So generally speaking, you're just playing mostly the snare and the bass drum as quickly as you possibly can. And there's a million different variations on this.
Oh, I'm sure.
I could talk about as well that would bore the shit out of everybody who
including people that listen to the music.
Right. Oh, hey, well, let's talk about the difference between a bomb blast and a gravity blast. Shut up. Just stop it.
Step.
Exactly. Guitars, again, these back to the common characteristics of the genre. The guitars usually, obviously, are heavily distorted, often to the point of incoherence, but usually rely also on heavy tremolo picking, meaning just picking one note as fastly as you can, like stuff like
Pulp
that.
Fiction.
Honestly, yeah. If you imagine taking Dick Dale's playing, and instead of being in a nice melodic scale, like a major or even a harmonic minor, it's something you're dark and just atonal and dissonant as hell.
Right.
But yeah, that's a very good analogy, the way that Dick Dale plays. I mean, that's tremolo picking right there. And most importantly, it seems like with black metal, all of it has to be recorded as shittily as possible. Like, the worse it sounds, the better.
Like, that's mandatory?
Yeah.
Shut
like bands. I remember there's one band called Demi Borgir that and I'll get into some of these great band names later too, and the members, hilarious names too. But I remember they got a lot of backlash when this one album of theirs came out. I don't remember which one because I don't really listen to them. but they released an album that actually sounded like it wasn't recorded in a garbage can, and people got pissed about it. Like, seriously,
that's too high quality. Take that shit back.
There was backlash about that. I'm not joking. It's ridiculous. These people, the people in the OG black metal dudes are intense as hell. I was talking about like straight edge people killing each other. No, I mean, way more intense than that. These people are nuts.
They have way too much time on their hands.
Well, I mean, it's Norway. What else are you going to do?
You're going to sauna?
But so the shitty recording actually ties into the origins of black metal too, and I'll get to that here in just one second. Because to know about the history of black metal, you have to look mainly to the band Venom. They're kind of credited as the progenitors of the subgenre, despite their music not really sounding much like black metal at all as we know it today. This band started in 1978 in Newcastle upon Tyne in England. You always gotta love. I don't know why they have names like that, like Stratford upon Avon and stuff like that. Whatever.
Hey man, it sounds better than like Newark, New Jersey.
Right. So Venom's first two albums, Welcome to Hell and Black Metal, released in 1981 and 82 respectively, came to define many aspects of black metal. Obviously the name, first and foremost. I mean, that is, the name of that second album is obviously where the genre got its title from. Satanic lyrics and imagery were another thing. Welcome to Hell features an upside down pentagram with a goat's head superimposed in it on the cover, as well as featuring that kind of Celtic font that many bands would use. Also, Bathory was another band who did that a lot, and I'll mention them here in a second, or talk more in depth about them here in a second too. They had played with very fast tempos, and perhaps most importantly, terrible recording quality. I mean, and Venom, Welcome to Hell is a solid album. Like I've listened to that album several times. It's good songwriting. It's interesting, fun to listen to, but man, it does sound like shit. It really is recorded poorly.
Sure.
And that's where that came from. Like, they look at them as like many black metal bands look at them as the forefathers, and like, hey, Venom did it shittily, we're going to do it shittily too. Right. And it's also kind of like eschewing being too like by showing their dedication to the genre, they're also like, we don't want to be too professional sounding or whatever.
Shirking all the quality. And
we don't want to be a try-hard, you know what I mean, or something like that. More than anything, though, because the bands do favor authenticity over skill or technique. And in fact, the subject of my topic today, Fenriz of the band Darkthrone, has a great quote that underlines this. He said, "I want to de-learn playing drums. I want to play primitive and simple. I don't want to play like a drum solo all the time and make these complicated riffs."
Wow.
Strangely enough, though, the person in the band who requires the most talent is always the drummer. Because, I mean, you got to have just a crazy amount of stamina to be able to play as fast as they do for as long as they do. Yeah, it's insane. I don't play drums as much as I used to anymore, but playing metal on drums is a great workout.
Oh, sure.
Like, I get done playing like Slayer or
the burn.
Darkest Hour, Black Dahlia Murder, something like that, and just drenched in sweat. So, plus you're playing double bass drum, like you're running in place for 3 minutes at a time too. So, there's that. Visually, the bands usually dress in all black, of course, and almost always have long hair. And they really seem to have something against sleeves. They almost always wear shirtless or sleeveless shirts. Many bands also wear corpse paint, which is where they paint their faces white and usually have like black makeup of some sort around their eyes. It made it look like they're dead, hence the name. They wear a lot of leather, metal studs on belts, collars, bracelets, etc. Pretty much anywhere you can put a metal stud, they usually try to put one on there somewhere. Right. So they're just trying to look as intimidating as possible, and also a little demonic, part and parcel with this.
Probably stole it from their parents. I was listening to Judas Priest.
Well, not in Norway, because Norway was. Well, I'll get to that too.
Right.
So while Venom may have given the name and certain hallmarks to the genre, Bathory really provided the blueprint for the music itself. While Venom's music was more in line with the then nascent thrash genre, which, like Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, stuff like that, Bathory's music was much darker and much more akin to modern black metal. And they also give us the first example of band members taking strange kind of gothic sounding names. The singer of Bathory, for instance, went by the name Quorthon.
Okay.
And on that subject, other fun band member names from different bands throughout the years. The band Mayhem had members named Euronymous, Death, and Count Grishnak. Oh, this is a great one.
Can you imagine if those guys got drunk and they're walking around the neighborhood and you're the one that's got to go out looking for them?
Interesting.
Death.
Right.
Death.
Interestingly enough, Count Grishnak's real name is almost as metal sounding. His name's Varg Vikernes.
And he chose to go. Oh,
yeah.
wow.
He also later went by the name Burzum as well, too. And I can do a whole episode completely just on this guy, and I probably will in the future. The band I'm talking about today, Dark Throne, they're two main members. They had one other member previously in the past, and I think a few others here and there. But the two main members' names are Fenriz and Nocturno Culto.
Of course.
Band Gorgoroth has members by the name of Infernus and Atteringer. Immortal featured band members named Abath Doom Occulta, Armageddon, and I don't know if it's Iscaria or Iscaria, whatever.
Those all sound like things that Godzilla would fight.
Right. Ison, Mortis, Chort, and Samoth from Emperor. And this is probably my favorite name of all of them. Kveldulv is the name of a member from Satyricon. They also had members named Exhertum and War God. Dude, black metal band members' names are hilarious. It's ridiculous.
I bet every one of their parents just have whiplash from shaking their heads back and forth. Like, where did we go wrong? Where did we do wrong?
And this is something I know that we've mentioned before, and that's that many black metal bands in the late 80s, early 90s were also involved in various murders and church burnings.
Nice.
Which, again, is something I'm sure I'll go into more detail in a future episode about. But the most interesting thing, I think, about the rise of the black metal scene is that it happened in what had traditionally been a very conservative and religious country. And I say conservative here, not so much in the political sense, but more in like the traditional value sense, like very straight-laced and serious.
Right.
You don't really have a lot of fun in Norway, I don't believe. So that's it.
That is so, whatever the word is, that's so American of you. Oh my God.
And in many ways, there are a lot of parallels really between the rise of black metal in Norway and punk in England and America. In that, it kind of came about as an equal and opposite reaction to the uptightness in those countries. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Norway was far more rigid and conservative even than Britain and the U.S. probably also contributed to black metal being far more extreme than punk ever was in that regards. So, I think that kind of sufficiently covers the background and shows just how crazy the fact that a member of a band who's considered one of the forefathers kind of black metal got, the fact that he got elected to an office is just crazy. So I'll get back to the story now.
I don't see any parallels at all.
But so Fenriz, whose real name is Gilva Negal, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, Negal, not really sure how to pronounce that, but he's been involved with the black metal scene since its early days. His most well-known band, Dark Throne, is considered one of the most important bands of the subgenre, and although most of the musical output of the last decade or so is more in line with thrash and speed metal, they get compared to Motorhead a lot these days, they still are considered legends in black metal. Although I'm sure many of the more extreme fans probably shun them quite a bit for that and claim that they're not true cult anymore.
Wow.
But, so he plays many instruments. Actually, he plays drums, bass, guitar, organ, and synths. Because a lot of black metal starts getting to there's a even further subgenre known as symphonic black metal. It also features kind of like operatic singing.
Stop it.
In the backgrounds and a lot of synthesizers. One of the most well-known black metal bands, Cradle of Filth, they really furthered the symphonic black metal sound. In the when was that? I first came across them in the very early 2000s, and that's what they're known for is symphonic.
So
black
whenever
metal.
you say operatic, you mean
like
yeah, but he's talking about maybe cathedral
female
choirs. Or would it be operatic?
It's usually like just one or two female vocalists, and it's usually more in the background.
Right, but I mean, do you think it would be more like a religious choir type of thing, or not like a Southern Baptist, but like a
sometimes you will hear that, like a choir,
right,
singing along, again in the background. Or a lot of black metal is very atmospheric too, so like just kind of building soundscapes and stuff like that, so that contributes to it a lot. But yeah, I guess you see both. You see either just standalone single singers, or maybe just one or two, and occasionally more of a choral kind of setting for that too. It's interesting. And as I was mentioning, this guy plays pretty much everything, and a lot of black metal musicians do this. There's some whole projects that are literally just one dude. He'll record the whole thing, vocals, bass, drums, guitars, everything. And I guess it's to kind of keep their vision completely pure, which goes right in line with their fixation on authenticity. And I jokingly said the term true cult earlier, which whenever you see that, which is a common term in black metal forums and stuff like that, it's spelled Kvlt. Yeah, like kind of like a Latin kind of spelling. But yeah,
really?
Kvlt.
So, I see what you're saying. So it's like the old Roman view. I see what you're saying.
Exactly. Okay. It's funny. It's almost an internet meme in many places. Like you'll see that pop up on like 4chan and shit like that when people are talking, or Reddit occasionally even too. So Fenris here, our man Gylve, I believe is how you pronounce his first name, Gylve, was asked by his local council to run as a backup councilman. He said in a Facebook posting on his Facebook page, he said, "I have reached a place in my life where I do not answer an unknown number, but on that day, that fateful day in early 2015, I was waiting for electricians to show up to change our spotlights from normal to LED. So I took the phone call." He said it was one of the members of Venstre, Norway's left-leaning political party, which in fact translates roughly to left. Venstre apparently is left in Norway.
Right.
And he went on to talk more about it in this post, which apparently Venstre is a small party in the middle of 9 major parties in Norway, which is crazy to think. And that's that goes to show just how backwards and limited our political system is. I mean, we've got, for all intents and purposes, 2 parties. You have libertarians and the Green Party, who's making up a small couple extras here and there, but by and large, 90% of the votes every election, maybe more, go to Democrats and Republicans. But Norway apparently has 9 fairly major parties. And Fenris had never voted for any of Venstre's candidates before, but he figured that running for a small party would be a good way to get to learn more about local politics. Plus, as he jokes, he had a, quote, bit of a name for being in the, quote, biggest international band from Kvlt, which is his town. And he says this, again, dripping with sarcasm. So he threw his name in, expecting to be like 18th in line.
So he really did throw his name in.
Oh, yeah. So to his surprise, he began to get traction again, because, I mean, he's one of the few people from this small town that, has some name recognition. He immediately began trying to sabotage his campaign.
Wow.
And he began circulating a picture of him holding his cat with the caption, "Please do not vote for me."
Oh.
And remind me, I'll put that up on our Facebook page whenever this episode goes live. But much to his chagrin, though, he did end up winning.
What?
And so what exactly are his duties, you may ask? His quote here, with a magazine or news site called Clairvoyant, of course, spelled with no vowels. That's the cool thing to do these days. Basically, I have to step in when the usual people who go to the big meetings are sick or something. Then I have to sit there and feel stupid among the straight people. I'm a pillar of my community, he said sarcastically. So he doesn't really have a lot, or any, for the most part, political power, but it's still an interesting story. And the thing that is, I mentioned at the beginning too, that quote from factmag.com, they posted this at the kind of towards the end of 2016, so over a year ago, but this actually happened in 2015. So he's already been
Doing it for
on
year.
this. He's a vice councilman, technically. But I mean, it's still a very interesting story. And
but can you imagine being in that room when all them tight ass white folks sitting in there, and then this brother walks in with all his studs,
lots of tattoos? No, since they're not really, since their style has drifted away from black metal over the last 10 years or so, they don't dress like that anymore. They usually wear like a denim jacket or sleeveless shirts.
Still, he ain't looking like everybody else.
No, long hair, lots of really bad tattoos, like really shitty tattoos,
like prison tattoos. Like
maybe, I guess you could qualify him as that.
Wow.
But yeah, it's still definitely strange to see this guy with. He's got hair all the way down his back,
sure.
As most metal musicians like that do. So definitely a funny story.
God, man.
Yeah.
Rarely do you ever say anything about any kind of like whatever genre has the word metal at the end of it, unless it's heavy.
Right.
I don't understand it. I don't get it. I'm not disqualifying it as a genuine genre. It's just that I don't care about that. But that was funny.
Right.
That brother was hot on the phone with Kid Rock one time going like, how do I sabotage this shit?
Yeah. And black metal is hard to listen to sometimes. Again, mainly because of the terrible recording quality.
Right.
And they're not intending it for it to be. It's the opposite of trying to be catchy. They're usually trying to be as, again, abrasive as possible and
against the system, and this is the way we are.
Very much eschewing any mainstream press or mainstream attention. The only two bands that I can really think of that have had much mainstream success at all are just Dimmu Borgir and Cradle of Filth. I used to see Cradle of Filth covered in Guitar World a lot, actually. And their guitarist, Paul Allender, actually has a signature model with PRS.
Oh, I'll be damned.
Yeah, he has his own signature guitar with them and has for quite some time. I mean, well over a decade.
So he's really respected in the guitar world then?
Yeah. He's a solid guitarist. And some of these guys are pretty decent. Although, again, most of the time the guitars are literally just wailing away on a single note at a time. There's very few solos. Some bands have no solos at all or anything, which is not necessarily any sort of a measure of a band's worth, of course. Sure. I'm not saying that by any means. I've played in plenty of bands where I never wrote a solo for anything, but
it's kind of against the standard kind of
thing. Exactly, because they see it as kind of showing off, and it bears a lot of similarities to punk in the ethos. I can see do it yourself.
I can see a lot of parallels in that. I really can.
Definitely a reaction against a very extreme counterculture to the norms and social mores, sort of, so to speak, of the country.
Yeah.
So interesting.
You got anything else, man?
Nah, that's all I got.
Well, the last thing I wanted to say is happy 4th birthday to my nephew Fisher Mini Cooper down in Southern California. Hey. And apparently he's old, and next year he should probably be having a job. So
bum.
Yeah, right. Christy, get that boy on some applications or something. So anyway, music history doesn't stop just because our podcast ends.
Anytime you guys have a myth or a legend you would like to hear us talk about on the show, feel free to reach us on social media, on Facebook at Tall Tales of Music Mythology, on Twitter at T2M2 Podcast, or email us at hosts, HOSTS, at T2M2.org.
And if you want to know more about the Smarts Project and what we can do for your high school music programs, join us at our home on the web at thesmartsproject.com. And our complaint department is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at randy@thesmartsproject.com. Now more than ever, be kind to each other. Tell your kids you love them while you got them. And whatever your passions in life, never be a myth.
Always be a legend.
Love you. Bye.
Bye. Hey everybody, John here. If you'd like to hear me rant about other topics besides just music, check out the Gluff Nation podcast, where my brother and I tackle topics from politics, pop culture, and tech trends. Find us on YouTube, and we'll be bringing our rambling diatribes to iTunes and everywhere else podcasts are available soon. Thanks for listening.